At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy is the CAD of the future. It's cloud-aided dispatch, not dinosaur computer-aided dispatch that looks like it was built in the 1980s. Rapid Deploy's cloud-native CAD, mapping, and analytics increase situational awareness for call takers, dispatchers, and responders. Rapid Deploy is taking public safety by storm. It's fast and easy to deploy, with implementation in days, not years. It's affordable for all agencies of all sizes. Rich in features, functionality, and data, it's also reliable and secure as we use Microsoft Azure Government Cloud. Go to rapiddeploy.com to learn more.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 388 of Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy, and we are, what is it? This is Tuesday. This is the Tuesday after Dare to Be Great 3, the final Dare to Be Great conference. We have completed the trilogy of greatness, and it was amazing. There were just so many good speakers. Just the sessions were unbelievable, and everyone that was there. I mean, there was people there from around the world, literally around the world, who were there attending live, and those registered, to go back and watch on demand. And it was an excellent experience. There was so much that went on, and just a big thank you to all the speakers, those that helped me out on the back end, and the sponsors. Especially the sponsors, we wouldn't been able to do what we do without the sponsors, and so everything really came together. And of course, all of you who attended, the attendees, thank you. It was excellent. A lot of people are asking for number 4 already, but number 3 was the last one, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But as of right now, that was the end to Dare to Be Great. And again, it was just an amazing experience to be able to do that. Also, a big shout out to patrons. Without the patrons as well, that what I get in subscriptions from patrons ends up going into what I do for these virtual events, whether it have been Dare to Be Great, Be the Difference, any of the state NENA or APCO chapter virtual events. It's what helps pay for that platform. So thank you to the patrons. Your support means a lot. Thank you so much. I'm going to be at Navigator coming up July 13th through the 15th. You can check me out at booth 412, and make sure to get registered if you've been thinking about going to the Navigator conference. This is put on by the IAED, and it's going to be in person. It'll be an in-person conference. This will be in Las Vegas at the Aria. And the last time I was there, in I think 2019, it was just It was amazing. So if you're on the fence about it, make sure to register. It's going to be a good time. The networking alone is just amazing. And excuse me, all of the sessions that are going to be there, especially their closing speaker. Their closing speaker is going to be Marley Matlin, and her credentials just are amazing. There's just so much that she does. She also has an app where it shows you the basics for sign language. So that is another thing to sign up and register to attend as well. So make sure to check them out. You can go to search for them and on their social media, going and checking out more that the IAD has to offer for Navigator. And big shout out to the IAD as well, as they will be hosting the podcast at Navigator 2021. So we are excited about that. Again, it's going to be booth 412. And we're going to be learning a lot about what they're doing there, what has been going on, as things were getting closed off because of the pandemic, but things are opening up now. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be going towards that. So make sure to check them out. And they're all over social media. You can either look up the IAD or Navigator, and you'll find out so much more about what it is that they're doing. So thank you again to them. Excuse me. And for this episode is going to be a little different. When I first started out doing the podcast, there were some episodes that I would do on my own and just kind of talk about dispatch and some of my stories and, different things that happened with them, how I dealt with them. And I want to get more into doing that again. Of course, there will always be a guest on sharing their story, because that's what all this is about, is sharing stories. And but for this one, I wanted to share a few of mine and just kind of talk with you, those who are watching this, as well as those who are listening to this, because this started out as an audio only podcast, but I just recently added video. So you get the best of both. You get a choice, but it will always be, there will always be an audio version. So again, just the support and everything for the podcast for over all these years, it has been good. It's funny to think back on how long I've been doing this, and just how much of a great experience it has been. Thank you for the support in everything that I do. Some of the things I'm going to talk about today, they might be hard to listen to. So, there's a warning at the beginning of every episode, and then I'm giving you a warning now if you want to turn back. But some of what I talk about might cause a trigger. So, if you want to back out now, you can. But I'll tell you, some of the stories I'm going to talk about reference, when you work at an agency, where you might know people, an agency where you are either living at currently or where you grew up and you go back and you end up working there. Also triggers. And some of these stories I have shared. This is episode 388, and not everybody goes through the entire library of episodes. So, I wanted to visit some of these stories that I have spoken, that I have shared before, for those who are new, who might not have heard them before. So we're also going to talk about closure. Now, this has to do with an infant death. But closure, one of the things that eludes us sometimes, not just sometimes, almost all the time. But there are those moments where, if you take a moment to ask, you put behind that fear of looking weak and ask. And it's not the same for everyone. Again, I speak from my own experience. We can sometimes get that closure that we're always looking for. And then, of course, I've got a question at the end that I want to see what you end up coming back with. So I want to start with a call from when I was working in Florida. This was in the city of Frostproof. I was working at Frostproof PD, and it was just one dispatcher on at a time, okay, for 8 hours, one dispatcher. And when it would go to shit, it would really go to shit. It would be crazy. Again, it's just one person there. No one else is there. And especially if there was a fire that was going on, because for some reason people like to set their vehicles on fire in the orange groves. It would get really really busy. And you're one person and you're rolling around in your chair trying to get different items to be able to read certain things, get phone numbers, get on the radio, get people out to where they got to go, tone out fire department or EMS or whatever incident is going on. It would be nuts. And if you're listening to this or watching this and you are one of those dispatchers or call takers who works in a center where you're all alone for 8 hours or 12 hours, you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about, because things go to hell fast, right? Well, I'm working at this police department and I live right in the city. I live there every morning, unless it was unless it was the 2 weeks that I was working mornings, because we had a shift. The way our shifts work is they switched every 2 weeks. So it was 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And if I was working that 6A to 2P, I wouldn't do what it is that I'm about to tell you right now, which is go to breakfast with my mom and my cousins. They all worked right there in town as well. And when I wasn't working the morning shift, every day, pretty much every day, we would go to the local restaurant, and one of the local restaurants rather, and we would have breakfast. And there was a waitress there, and she became one of our buddies. Like we would see her every day. And I remember we would ask, like, do you work every day, every single day? Do you not take a day off? And I think she took maybe one day off a week or something, but she loved what she did, and we would go in. She knew what it was that, what we like to drink, how we liked our eggs, all types of stuff, where she really connected with us and we connected with her. And, that happens sometimes when you go into a place and they know what you like and they know your name. And it sounds funny, right? It sounds like I'm talking about the theme song to Cheers. You want to go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came, right? Well, that's kind of like how it was there. And they knew where I worked as well. And, the chief and some of the officers would go in there every so often. So it was really cool to go in. And, some restaurants are called, whatever city family restaurant. This actually felt like a family restaurant. And, one day she wasn't there. And I thought, that's weird. She's always here. And, it was fine. It was probably her day off or something. But it was just kind of weird, right? And a few days passed. And, then we saw her again. And of course, the same happy person. And it just made you feel good, when you see someone and you feed off their energy. And it was always cool to see her and talk with her and, just everything. And I remember going into work once, and it was the morning shift, and it was early, and I'm sitting there and I get this phone call, and it's a guy, and he's very upset, and he's telling me that that he had gone to sleep the night prior, and that his girlfriend was watching TV, and that he was getting tired, so he told her, I'm going to go to bed already. And they had been watching a show, I guess, and she had said to him, okay, and said goodnight and stuff, and said that she would be to bed soon. She just wanted to finish whatever it was that she was watching at the time. And he woke up and she wasn't there. And he ended up going out to the living room and saw her on the couch and just figured, oh, she fell asleep on the couch. But when he went to go wake her up, she was cold to the touch. And, luckily, we had a fire rescue that was not far from his residence. So where I worked, because it was a small police department, we didn't have emergency medical dispatch. We would get the main information, and then we would transfer for the medical piece of that to what was called county radio. And they would do the medical part from there. But I had all the initial information right before I transferred and got fire rescue toned out, which they got there fairly quickly. Again, they were just down the road, and an officer as well went. And I didn't know the person's name or anything, because my caller was so upset. I had the caller's name, of course, and all of that information, but when asking for the information of the person, he just didn't want to give it. So of course the officers were going to get that when they got there, especially because of the nature. It wasn't just a medical call. It seemed like maybe there was a little more to it. So anyway, they went out there, and they had been out there for a while. And I remember when they came back, they had pictures as well. And I remember asking if I could see the pictures. And it was only because, like, I don't know, I knew that the person had passed, but there's that whole, it was just something that I wanted to find out about more, because I had been talking to the officers about what had happened. But in the information that I was getting from my caller, the person sounded familiar. And I remember asking the officer the person's name, and he gave me the person's name. And actually that's why I wanted to see the picture, because I was shocked. When he had said the name, I thought, no, there's no way. And I thought maybe it was because I didn't know this person's last name. I only knew their first name. And because it was similar, I I remember saying, I know you got the pictures there, man. Like, can I see the picture? Because and the officer goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, the person's name sounds familiar." And he goes, "Well, I don't know if I should show you if you know who this person is." And I said, I just need to see may I please see this picture? And and I remember I saw the picture, and sure enough, it was my friend. It was my friend who was the waitress. I couldn't believe it. And that's one of those things, when you're working in a city that, or an agency or whichever, where you live, there's a possibility that you end up taking calls from people that you know or about people that you know. But I was in such disbelief that, I just thought, "Nah, it can't be. It can't be." Because of the name, And, it was just a quick glance of one of the images that was laying there, and, and sure enough, it was her. It was one of the things that happened early on in my career that I had to learn how to navigate and, how to speak to someone, about certain things that were going on. And, it was a hard lesson to learn in the beginning. But I'm glad that, I was able to meet that person, because I think about her sometimes and I think, "Man, that's how I wanna treat people as well." Just very, very nice. And it just sucks, right? Sometimes some of these calls. But we find out, of course, we find out how to navigate a lot of this that we deal with. And it was good that, I was able to have someone there that I could talk to at that time, especially to find out, more about the call and what had happened. Now, there wasn't anything, malicious or anything like that. Of course, I won't go into detail about it, but, just so that there was no foul play. It wasn't anything like that. Um, but it was just, it's just one of those things that you end up having to deal with when you're working this job. The next call, that I want to mention here, I want to share an image. So for those of you who are listening right now over audio, the image that I'm showing is of a full moon, and it has a story. And some of you do know this one, but it's the image of the I Am 911 story that started everything. And it says, "I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. Hashtag I am 911." And the reason I want to share this, again, it's a story that some people know, not everybody knows, because this is episode 388. So this story has to do with a trigger. And a lot of us have gone through this. And also the reason I'm telling you all of this stuff too is because I want you to know you're not the only one, that you're not alone, and that you can reach out. And for those in the general public who have nothing to do with public safety, who watch or listen to this show, to know what it is that we deal with. And also, those who might be family members or friends, what it is that we go through. So this story, again, this started out the I Am 911 movement, where we were sharing stories to be an eye-opener for the reclassification issue, but quickly turned into peer support as we all were sharing stories and share stories all the time now, which is amazing. Such a good thing to be able to do. This is the first step in the healing process, is facing some of these stories. And again, it might not be the same for everyone, but sharing stories is a good thing. The interesting thing about this story here, and as it relates to um, triggers, is that when I started this, I was on vacation in Florida. I was also there for a National APCO conference. And the week after the conference is when I had started this movement. And a few days later, I had been watching Stranger Things. I don't know what season they're on now, but I'd been watching the first season, basically binging it and getting through because everyone kept talking about it. And I really dug it as well. And I was watching, and I got to the season finale. So if you haven't watched the first season, spoiler alert. um, I'm watching this show, and there's a scene where the one of the kids in the show, he goes missing. He's basically missing the entire episode. You see certain or season rather. You see where he's at, and the other kids trying to find him and stuff. But there's a part in the season finale of that first season where they end up finding him. His mom and the sheriff end up finding him, and he's laying on his back, and the sheriff is performing CPR on him. And while he's performing CPR, he's saying either "Come on, buddy," or "Breathe, buddy." One of the two. I don't remember for sure. But what I do know is while I was watching, I started sweating. And then I realized that I'm bawling. I am crying. Straight up crying. And just lose it as I'm watching this play out. And I didn't know what was going on at first. I thought, well, maybe I'm relating to it because I have kids. And then I realized it was in his words and what was playing out in front of me. It was this story because of the phone call I took. Because of a teenager who had flipped their four-wheeler and was underneath it when the teenager's parents found them. And I take this call. They had moved the four-wheeler off, and they started CPR. EMS is already getting out there, so are officers. And the officer who got there first, I remember hearing over the radio him saying that he was on scene, and I can hear him running as the parents are doing textbook CPR that I've been helping them with. And I hear him when he says that he's out with them, not only on the radio, but also, on the phone. And I couldn't hang up. I couldn't. I wanted to hear this kid breathe again. I wanted to hear the parents gasp at the fact that their kid was breathing again. But what I heard was the officer saying, "Come on, buddy. Breathe, buddy." And of course, I'm on the phone. I can't see this. I'm piecing it in my head like a puzzle. And then EMS gets there, and I finally hang up. And it wasn't the outcome that I was hoping for, but that stuck with me. And I didn't realize how much it stuck with me until that night when I'm sitting in the living room by myself watching this episode, and I break down crying because I was actually seeing it play out. Triggers. That scene fully triggered my emotions. Things that I didn't even realize were there at the time. But also, I must have known that it was there because this was the story that I chose to start the I Am 911 movement. Again, to open the eyes of millions, literally from around the world, to show what it is that we deal with on a daily basis. Not all calls are like this. There are some good calls as well. They're rare, but there are some good calls. But this was one of them this was the one that I wanted to start out with. And then what are the odds that a few days later, I see this episode and it plays out? Almost as if it was meant to happen, or that I needed it to happen so that I could finally allow myself to feel for this call. One that, hell, who knows? I probably buried it. Wasn't really thinking about it at the time. But then seeing it play out, holy shit. Did that hurt? But after that cry, I felt way better. And it's been so much better. I've been able to share this story, and it's been good. But those are things that we have to navigate as well, right? We have to figure out certain things, and some things will trigger us, but it's okay to feel, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not be okay. And it took a long time for me to realize that when I was in dispatch, because I had that fear that I think a lot of us do, that we would be seen as weak. But in fact, we're the ones that are stronger. Now, the last call that I want to talk about is about closure. So I'm gonna bring this image down and share another one. And this image here, is of a crib. And the story says, blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. And this is one, obviously, that I shared for the movement, and it was one of my calls. And when I talk about closure, we always want to know why or how, of course, with certain things. And when this call came in, it was about, it was in the evening, and it was a mom who was just out of control with her emotions, and for good reason, as you can see, from what I've read in the story. We were doing CPR, and all I knew was that the mom had awakened from a nap and found her child was not breathing. Her infant was not breathing. And she had told me that her mom was there. So, this is the grandmother of the kids. And, she, the caller now, the mom, not the grandmother, had laid down to take a nap because she was working third shift. And her mom was there to help with the kids. And when she got up, there was nobody around, so she didn't know where the kid or the infant was, rather. So she went to look for the infant and found her. And so we're doing CPR and everything, right? Again, another case of textbook CPR. and they're just going and going and going. But everything that's going on, the screaming, the all of it. When I got off the phone, when EMS got there and I got off the phone, I was just destroyed. And I remember my coworker, a person that I grew up with, actually. We went to school together. Funny that we ended up working together in dispatch for many, many years. She was on radios, and I was working backup phone and radios. So she's sitting right next to me, and she says, "Are you okay?" And I almost told her I was fine. And actually, I think I did. I think I did. I think I said I was fine, but obviously I wasn't, and she knew I wasn't. And I think I did tell her, I was like, actually, no, I'm not. Like, that one really, really fucked me up. And I went to the next call, and then I had said to her, I just need to know what happened, because they ended up calling for a detective out there, which made me, you know, feel even worse. Like, God, what did I just listen to? What happened? And as always, we don't get that closure, but that time, I actually asked for some closure. I asked for help. And I'm taking calls, and I remember getting a message from the sergeant, who was also her husband, and he said, "As soon as I clear from here, I'm gonna head up there and talk with you." And I said, "Okay." And it kept going throughout the day, and when he got there, I remember, God, I can remember this like it was just yesterday. I remember him walking in and sitting right next to me. And we were able to take a moment. We had enough people on that I could take a moment. And I remember turning and looking at him, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Not really, man, but I just need to know what happened. I need you to tell me exactly what happened, and I'll be fine after that." And he did. He told me, they needed to call a detective out just to make sure there was no foul play or nothing, like that had happened. But I guess, the infant had been laid on the bed, and the infant ended up rolling onto um, a basket of towels and could not lift its head and suffocated. And and that's how it went down. But before he got there, I remember EMS calling up, because they would call for their times and numbers. And I remember they called up and they asked for the person who took this specific call. And I got on the line with them. And at this point, I just been thinking and thinking and thinking in my head about this call. And they said, "We just wanted to tell you that, although, the infant didn't make it, when we got there, they were doing textbook CPR. And we wanted to call to tell you that you did everything that you could, and that you did a really good job, that you were able to keep them, as calm as possible, and have them doing CPR." And that felt good to be able to hear that that I had done everything that I could, and that I actually had done a good job, because I was beating myself up on the inside. Um, and I think a lot of us do, when we take calls. We want to be able to help everyone, right? A lot of times it doesn't happen. It doesn't work out that way. But to kind of get that recognition a little, to at least know that we did everything that we could, that there was no second guessing any of it. Um, That was good. It helped. And then, of course, for the sergeant to come up and tell me what had happened helped even more, because then, for sure knew that I had done what I was supposed to. I had done my job and done it well, but that there really wasn't anything I could do beyond what I did. So again, I tell you all of these stories so that you can learn from my experience. And I'm sure a lot of you have gone through this, but if you haven't yet, if you're listening to this and you're new, these are some of the things that will happen. But we're able to navigate a lot of these conversations and actually ask for help. And it's so good that people are asking for help now and are able to talk and get it out, because it's needed. And we learn from each other, right? That's what all this has been about, is sharing stories so that people can understand more what it is that you do, but so that we can understand each other as well. And for those out in the field to understand, and for us to have hard conversations just like this, but powerful ones that we're able to learn from each other. And it's okay to ask for help, whether it be to, you know, see a photo to understand better, or to talk to one of the officers or someone out in the field to learn more about a certain call, to get that closure, to start that healing process. It is okay. So I want to close with a question, because my son asked me this a couple days ago, and he said, if you could go back in time and change one thing, what would it be? And that's my question to you, especially when you think about sometimes a lot of these calls that you've taken, or if you ever second guess what you do for a living, this career, this industry, would you change anything? I wouldn't change a thing. I told him straight up, I wouldn't want to go to the past and change anything, because any little thing could alter my future. And I'm happy with my present. And he kind of chuckled and he goes, why you got to be so cool? In the answer that I gave. But think about that. One little thing that you go back and change could impact your entire career. You think maybe some things would be good, but if I went back and changed just one thing, I wouldn't be here right now. Or I might not be here right now with you, talking and sharing all these stories. But I'm curious, if you could go back in time to change one thing, what would it be? I don't regret my choices, or these calls, this profession, any of it, because it has helped so many, and it has helped myself as well in learning so much more about people and how we deal with different calls. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I plan on doing more and talking about more of the calls that I have done here as we go along. Thank you for joining me for this episode 388 of Within the Trenches. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. If you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. And if you are looking for any bonus content, you can check us out. That is patreon.com/WTT podcast. This episode can be seen on Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Thank you all so very much for the support and for sharing your stories. They're important ones, and they mean so much. And thank you for the job that you do each and every single day. Have a good one, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.